Hey everybody, welcome to the Off-Farm Income YouTube page. This is Matt Breckwald. Thank you so much for being here with us. You know, this is a very exciting time of the year for me where I get to profile all of the national finalists for the National Star Awards at the FFA convention coming up in October. And I'm kicking it off this year with an interview with Amelia Hayden. Amelia is a finalist for the National Star in Agriscience, and she has been really deeply involved in research and academics since even before middle school, through the 4-H, through the FFA, and it's really interesting to hear why she joined the FFA, which was so she could do research that could get her to the point she wanted to be later in life. Really kind of an advanced decision for a 8th grader turning freshman going into the FFA, going into high school. Today, she is a sophomore at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. She is majoring in microbiology, and she is looking forward to doing agricultural research into the future. And this may be the person who solves the peanut allergy. Really interesting. So if you're a teacher out there that is trying to inspire your students about research, or you've got students that are very interested in research and they're looking for a mentor, I think Amelia is a great one, and this would be a great episode for them to either watch or to listen to. So we'll have that coming up for you right away. Joining me today is Amelia Hayden, and she is coming to us from the University of Wisconsin at Madison, where she is majoring in microbiology, and she is a star finalist for the 2019 National FFA Convention in Agriscience, and she's a former chapter president from Bigfoot High School in Walworth, Wisconsin. Amelia, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
You bet. This is always a very exciting time of the year for me. I get to interview all of the star finalists for the upcoming National FFA convention, and you are the first person I get to interview. So you are the most exciting first interview of all the most exciting interviews of the fall. Wow, that's a mouthful.
Well, I'm excited to be here. Doubly excited as well.
All right. Well, you know what I'd love to do is just start off just by letting our audience get to know you a little bit and get to know a little bit more about you. Would that be all right with you?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, so you're 18 now. How long have you been at the University of Wisconsin?
So I'm starting out my sophomore year now. So This will be my second year here.
Okay, so just getting started with your sophomore year at the University of Wisconsin. And when you're not at school, when you're at home, are you in town, are you on a farm, or something kind of in between?
So I grew up in the small town of Sharon, Wisconsin, not on a farm by any means, but still really involved in the agricultural community through 4-H and later FFA.
Oh, okay. All right, very good. Well, what brought you into the FFA and the 4-H as well?
So I actually joined the FFA because I wanted to start my supervised agricultural experience in agriscience research.
Okay.
So I found out that there were competitions you can do in FFA related to ag research and knew that that was what I wanted to do for a career. So I thought that was a great way to jumpstart my skills right at the beginning of high school.
Okay. So at your high school, at Bigfoot High School, is your freshman year of high school, is that your first opportunity to be part of the FFA, or do you have a middle school opportunity there?
So you can join as a middle schooler as well, and despite several of my friends telling me that I should, I didn't take the leap to join FFA in middle school and decided to wait until I was a freshman and starting at the high school.
Got it. Okay. So as a freshman then, you already knew what you wanted your career to be, and then you made this unbelievably mature decision to join the FFA to help you further your interest in that career?
Yeah, I've always been the weirdly academic kid that absolutely loves school and wants to do homework, and was also a really big goal setter growing up. So I was always wanting to know, what do I want to do when I grow up? How can I get closer to there?
Okay. So when do you think you made the decision? Like, how old do you think you were when you made the decision that you wanted to work in agriscience once you were finished with college and on into your career?
I would say that It started probably in my 7th grade or freshman year. But even when I was little, like when I was 5, I told my parents I wanted to be a zoologist and work with animals. So I was always dreaming in that kind of career area.
Okay. Now, I totally understand being very devoted to school and being a great student all through elementary, through middle school, and then on into high school. But to be selecting a course of study going into high school because you know it's going to assist you in getting to your future career, I mean, that is a pretty advanced decision. Did you have help with that, or is that just something you came up with all on your own?
I definitely always have help bouncing my parents' ideas on what my goals and dreams were for the future. And then as I got to high school too, my teachers in every subject, and especially agriculture, were super helpful for always helping me write up a plan that would help me achieve all of my goals that I wanted to. Okay,
very good. So once you got into the FFA, then how did you take advantage of what was available to you to do more research and all of that, I should say?
The biggest area with research was the fact that I wasn't the only student in my chapter that had an Agriscience research supervised agricultural experience.
Okay.
So I was actually able to learn from other students, and we would be all in the ag room after school working on our Agriscience fair projects together. And so that was a really cool experience from my chapter, was that community of all being able to work on research and kind of learning about the different topics that other people were doing and practicing for the competitions together.
Okay.
And then outside of research in FFA, I got involved in different leadership development events and speaking contests, as well as serving as a chapter officer and getting more involved on the leadership side of things.
Interesting. Now, you ultimately ended up serving as your chapter's president. What led you to the officer team? Why did you want to, I guess, go to that aspect of the FFA as well?
For me, leaving my first chapter meeting, I had decided I want to be a chapter officer. After seeing the power that individual people, and at the time I thought it was just officers, but now looking back on it, it truly is any FFA member, truly has the power to make other people feel included and make them feel welcome when it's their first meeting. And I wanted to be able to help spread that message, to help make younger members, as I got older in the FFA, really feel like they were welcome and that they had a specific place in FFA.
Okay, very good. Well, I know there have to have been at least one, but maybe more FFA advisors along the way that really helped you with this vision and with this journey. Who were those people for you?
Yeah, so I actually had 4 FFA advisors throughout my high school career that were all super helpful whenever I wanted to brainstorm an Agriscience fair project. When I wanted to write an application, they were always there to review it and really would stay with me for as long as I needed to make sure that I was able to be successful in my research. So my 4 advisors were Ms. Case, Mr. Markart, Mr. Henningfeld, and then Mrs. Conkle was my advisor that has been there for all 4 years of high school. So she definitely was super instrumental in making sure that I could reach all of my goals within the FFA.
Well, very good. Well, thank you very much for acknowledging all those folks. It's so important what they do, and I think it's great when people learn just how much FFA advisors really do for their students. They devote a lot of time.
Yeah.
All right. Well, Amelia, I'm going to take a quick break here and acknowledge one of my sponsors. You mind just hanging on while I do that really quick?
Definitely.
All right. Well, everybody, you know what? I'm going to be talking about Powder River livestock handling equipment, and definitely want to encourage you all to go over to powderriver.com and check out what they've got to offer. They make absolutely fantastic livestock handling equipment, especially for your larger livestock, squeeze chutes, sweep tubs, cattle panels, and they were developed out here in the West. And if you've never seen cattle that come in off the open range out here in the West, then you don't know just how crazy and wild cattle can be, and they had to design equipment to handle those very wild cows, bulls, and steers. So please go to powderriver.com, see what they've got to offer, and let them know that Matt Breckwald from the Off-Farm Income Podcast sent you to them. All right, Amelia, thank you for letting me get away with that.
No problem.
Okay. Well, let's talk about your supervised agricultural experience. So we know you're very career-driven, you're very education-driven, and that you've identified this a long, long time ago. So let's talk about your SAE and see how this all developed for you throughout high school and even into today.
Yeah, so my SAE throughout high school, I really had two major areas that I was focusing on with Agriscience research. The first that I did throughout my freshman and sophomore years of high school was on animal nutrition and helping increase growth, looking at both the animal as a whole and then later on the cellular level and culturing cells and looking at how cells grow. And then the second phase of my research came in my junior and senior years of high school when I was looking at peanut allergies and seeing if there's a way we can process peanuts differently so that when people with allergies eat them, they don't have an allergic response.
Okay. Interesting. All right, so let's talk about this really quick. Let's talk about the animal nutrition to start. And well, let me ask you: Did the studying of peanut allergies did you kind of build up to that with your first SAE? Like, was it the next logical step in terms of your abilities and your knowledge?
So for me, it was actually looking for a way to transition out of the animal side of agriculture and into more of a food production and processing side, because I wanted to gain knowledge in a variety of areas. So I thought, why not switch up my projects to learn more about another specific area?
Okay.
And a lot of times when I'm starting research projects, I go and look at what the USDA is doing for research, because that's a really good indicator of what might be problems that are big and facing the agriculture industry that need to be tackled and looked at.
Very interesting. Okay, so when you're doing that, when you look at what the USDA is doing, do you ever look at something and go, well, this is being done by a lot of people, so I need to find something else, more of a niche, or do you jump right into the fray?
So first, what I look for is something that I'm interested in, because I truly believe if you're not passionate about the research or about any project you're doing, you're not going to want to commit as much time to it.
Sure.
So I would look for research that was being done that would interest me, and then say, what more needs to be found out about this subject? So they're researching X about it, but what would either help their research or expand on their research so that new knowledge is being discovered? So for me, it's not about repeating experiments that have already been done, but instead building on the strong foundation of knowledge that's already been laid.
Okay, very cool. Interesting. Okay, so tell us about the animal research SAE. So you're getting started with this as a freshman. How do you dive in?
Yeah, so I went to my advisors and told them I wanted to do a project with animals. And they said that the easiest animals to take care of in our high school would be to bring in a whole bunch of mice. Okay. So I actually was in charge of a group of mice while I was a freshman, and I was changing what was in their feed to determine whether that affected their blood glucose levels throughout a period of 6 weeks.
Okay, so this is where the research down to the cellular level, the molecular level came in, is that right?
Yeah, so then that next year, I wanted to see, what happens. I have all these different feeds, and I can see how much they're growing and their weight and their blood glucose levels as an animal. But now what's happening on the cellular level? So I reformulated those feeds to be able to be fed to cells now and measured the cell growth.
Okay. Oh, my goodness. I knew I wasn't going to be able to keep up with you. So you reformulated feed so that it could be fed directly to cells?
Yep.
How does one even figure out how you do that? To me, that's just mind-boggling.
So the main thing is that when you're culturing cells, they need some sort of liquid diet. Okay. So if you can find a way to get all the same nutrients but in liquid form, that's really the trick there.
Okay. So what were your findings when it came to animal nutrition? What were you able to determine?
So on the cellular level, I added 2% of a compound that's derived from cinnamon. So it was 2% of the overall diet. And that actually increased cell growth the most as compared to without that cinnamon compound or with higher levels of that cinnamon compound. Okay.
And so how did that help? Because you were looking into glucose in this, yes?
Yeah. So the broader implications there are then that this was helping stabilize blood glucose levels.
Okay.
So that if you went and ate a whole bunch of sugar, even as like a 5-year-old gets on a sugar high, this would help stabilize it so there's not that spike and increase in sugar right after you ate feed that was high in sugar concentration.
Very interesting. Okay. Now let's jump to the next SAE, talking about peanut allergies. Explain to us again what it was you were trying to determine, and let us know what you found.
Yeah, so I was trying to find a way to add in a compound called a tannin to peanuts as they're being processed, so that when people eat them, they don't actually have an allergic reaction if they typically would. And so the idea with this is that the tannin binding to the peanut almost disguises it, so your body's immune system can't recognize it as what it would typically think of a peanut looking like.
Okay. And
I actually found that it works 60% of the time, which is super cool. Obviously, you don't want to feed a peanut to a person with allergies and say, well, 60% of the time you'll be fine.
Right.
But it's a cool basis to continue growing on and continue looking into.
Interesting. Now, when you say 60%, does that mean 6 out of 10 people will be fine, or does that actually mean that a person who's allergic 6 out of 10 times will not have an allergic reaction?
So a person who's allergic 6 out of 10 times will not have a reaction, or the immune system won't recognize it.
Okay. So at least at the level that you've been able to achieve so far, it's not an indication that if you eat the peanut that has the tannin added to it that you don't have an allergic reaction. It doesn't mean you're always going to not have one. You could potentially still have one in the future.
Exactly. And so that's where the growth comes into it, and I know there's more that can be done in that specific field of research to continue looking into that and seeing if we can bump that percentage up.
Okay. Really interesting. Now, what made you want to switch over to the food side of agriculture? Why did you want to switch from animals over to food like this?
So, one, I was interested in just getting a new perspective on different projects. And then secondly, I competed in the National Agriscience Fair.
Okay.
Which caused me to have to switch out of categories for FFA. If you place high enough, you cannot come back and compete in the same category because they don't want the same person winning it every year in a row kind of thing.
So you were a victim of your own success.
Yes.
That is great. That's wonderful. So as you went along then, did you win at the National Agriscience Fair the first time with your animal nutrition project then?
So my first project, I got second at the state competition, but then my second project, I did win the national competition.
Wow, very cool. Good for you. Now, I'm sure I could just keep asking you questions for hours on end about this because it's really fascinating, but I want to jump up to college. So here you are now, you're in college, you're majoring in microbiology. And so where do you see that taking you? Do you want to go out into the workplace after your bachelor's degree, or will you continue on to graduate school?
Yeah, so after I earn my bachelor's degree, I'd like to get a job with a company doing research in agriculture and see where that takes me. And maybe grad school is in the future after that, but for sure getting into the workforce right away after college. And
is there any one sector of the workplace that you've got your eye on?
I am really open to whatever. I have always been partial to biotechnology, but I know that there's research to be done in every sector of agriculture to help us continue producing a safe and abundant food supply.
Very cool. Now, have you already achieved your American degree?
I will be receiving that this fall at the National Convention.
Okay, so you've got a big convention coming up. You're getting your American degree, and you're going to be one of the 4 finalists for the National Star in Agriscience up on the stage.
Yes.
Very cool. Now, I'm assuming you've been to the National Convention before.
I have. This will be my 5th National Convention.
Oh, very cool. So you know what to expect, or at least you know what to anticipate in terms of standing on that stage in front of all those students.
Yep. It's certainly going to be an experience.
Very cool. Well, that's great. How did you find out that you were one of the final 4, one of the finalists?
I actually got a call from one of our state staff in Wisconsin FFA, and she told me that she had gotten the call from National FFA even before I had, and so she wanted to tell me.
Very cool. Well, what's it going to mean to you? What's it going to mean to Bigfoot High School if you are the National Star in Agriscience?
To me, it's a chance to showcase, one, what students across the country are doing in their SAEs and how much FFA members are truly preparing for their careers like I had the chance to. And then two, it's a chance to showcase all of the opportunities that my home high school and the Bigfoot FFA chapter gave me in terms of research, materials and supplies and knowledge.
That is great. Well, I want to ask your advice really quick for other students out there, Amelia, but for another student out there who finds himself very academically oriented, at such an early age, in middle school or maybe even sooner, and they feel pressure from their peers to be less academically oriented and more oriented in other things that are maybe popular at the time. What advice would you have for that student in terms of staying the course and really focusing on their education like you have?
I would say the first thing is that if that's genuinely who you are as a person and that you love learning things and growing yourself, then that's something that will benefit you for the rest of your life. And the second thing is that if you can find a way to take all that knowledge and that desire to grow and use it to help other people, that's truly going to make you shine through regardless of what career path you choose, by applying that knowledge and skill, not just to get good grades in the classroom, but to find ways to truly help people in your community and in your career as a whole.
Awesome. That is great advice. Amelia, best of luck to you. Thank you so much for coming on today. And hey, congratulations. Great job on all the accomplishments so far.
Thank you so much. It was great talking with you today.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining us on the Off-Farm Income podcast on our YouTube page. Really appreciate you being here. As always, I would always love to hear from you. If you've got any questions, if you have any feedback, I would love to hear from you. You can email me. The email address is matt@offincome.com. You can always leave comments here on the YouTube page. We'd really appreciate any feedback you have, any guest suggestions, and just thank you so much for being here. And as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.